It started as a routine inspection of a sealed bunker door deep in the woods, a job nobody else wanted. But when Riley Maddox pried open the rusted hatch, she didn't expect to find rows of military-grade combat drones, perfectly preserved and still active. What she discovered inside would not only make headlines, but draw the attention of people far more dangerous than she was ready for. Before we dive in, tell us where you're watching from. We love seeing how far these stories travel. And if you're into mysteries, machines, and moments that change lives, hit that subscribe button. Tomorrow's episode is even more jaw-dropping than this one. The forest was thicker than Riley remembered. Pines stretched high like sentinels, their limbs draped in fog, muffling her every step as she hiked toward the old utility grid listed as Sector 9. Her boots crunched gravel as she scanned the terrain, damp, isolated, quiet. She was alone out here. Just her, a rusting map of military infrastructure, and a job no one else had wanted. Check the structural integrity of a Cold War-era bunker supposedly sealed since the 72nds. Routine, they'd said. Boring even. But nothing about the bunker looked routine when she found it. Carved into a moss-covered hillside, the entrance resembled a shipping container buried halfway into the earth. A pair of thick, reinforced steel doors stood slightly ajar, not open, just unlatched. Odd. Riley stepped closer, heart quickening. Her fingers brushed rusted hinges as she pushed one side open. It groaned like a beast waking from a long sleep. A gust of warm, metallic air hit her face. She clicked on her flashlight. Beyond the threshold was a narrow concrete tunnel, lined with industrial conduit and ancient emergency lights, the kind with red bulbs covered in dust. A soft hum vibrated beneath her boots. Power. That wasn't supposed to be possible. She took a cautious step inside. The corridor led deeper than expected. At 30 meters in, the narrow hallway opened into a vast, domed chamber. Riley froze. A hangar. She swept the beam of her flashlight across the space metallic catwalks, massive service gantries, stacked supply crates, and in the center, shrouded in low light and silence, sat a stealth drone. No, not one. 5 of them. They were black, sleek, shark-like in shape, with swept-back wings and retractable landing gear. Each was parked on a circular pad, marked with faded insignias Riley didn't recognize. And etched into the concrete wall behind them in faint paint, Project Silent Wing. Her breath caught. This wasn't just a bunker. This was a military testing site. She approached the nearest drone, her fingers tingling. It was cold to the touch, but not dead. A tiny diode near the front sensor blinked green. Not off. On standby. Impossible, she muttered. The drone's nose hatch clicked open. Riley stepped back, pulse pounding. But nothing happened. It simply opened to reveal a small diagnostic terminal glowing faintly. She climbed the ladder up to it and scanned the interface. It wasn't just functional. It was ready. As she sifted through the menu, a login prompt appeared. She tapped the first command key. The screen flickered, and then the prompt filled in. Automatically. Welcome, Riley Maddox. She dropped her hand. How did it know her name? That's when she noticed something lodged just inside the hatch. A single bent metal dog tag, wedged into a seam like someone left it behind on purpose. She pulled it free. The name was scratched, but the last name was clear. Maddox. She stared at it, her hand trembling. The drone knew her. It remembered her. And suddenly, the mission didn't feel routine at all. Riley backed down the drone's ladder slowly, like it might wake up if she moved too fast. The silence in the hangar was oppressive now, filled with questions she didn't have answers for. The metal dog tag, her last name etched into its surface, still buzzed in her palm like it was holding on to memory. But her father had been gone for 10 years, killed in a training accident, they said. He was a flight mechanic stationed overseas. They never gave her much more than that. She was 17, angry, alone. But now, standing in front of a fleet of secret combat drones in a bunker no one had mentioned in her briefing, she felt something bigger unfolding, like this whole place had been waiting for her. She walked along the line of drones. Each one sat motionless, quiet predators asleep on cold steel. Their bodies were smooth and matte black, with tiny panel seams and no visible serial numbers. Not even the usual military ID stenciling. Just sleek, perfect machines designed to disappear. The kind of tech Riley had only ever seen in classified briefings or conspiracy forums. She climbed onto the second drone, easing herself into the cockpit space. No seat. Just a control core and a console shaped like a hybrid between a flight stick and something she didn't recognize, maybe neural input. The systems inside weren't old. They weren't even outdated. They were ahead. Way ahead. Beneath the console, she noticed a heat sink still warm. That made no sense. The base was supposed to be decommissioned decades ago. And yet, this drone had power running to it now. She slid beneath the fuselage and popped open a maintenance hatch. Her flashlight revealed something shocking. Fusion coils. Compact. Advanced. She blinked. The battery core wasn't lithium-based. It looked like a prototype microreactor experimental, self-sustaining, and not even rumored to be operational in public defense sectors. "What the hell are you?" she whispered. Then she saw it. A stamped metal plate tucked under the conduit. She wiped away the grime. USAF, divided by SERE Division, divided by Blackfire Engineering Unit. Model, Silent Wing, 04. Test date, Jan 23, 2020. Her breath caught in her throat. 2020? This wasn't Cold War tech. This wasn't even old. It was active. She sat back, trying to calm her racing thoughts. Why would they build combat drones this advanced, then bury them? Who built this? And why was her name in the system? As she pulled herself to her feet, the console lit up again. The hangar's soft blue lights flickered, then steadied. The entire facility had just shifted into a low-power mode. A whisper of electricity tickled the back of her neck. Then a soft hiss. One of the drone bays unlocked. A robotic arm extended from the wall, reaching toward the drone like it was preparing for launch. No, no, no. Riley rushed back toward the exit, heart pounding. But behind her, the drone's engines purred. Not loudly, not aggressively, just ready. And something deep in her gut told her she'd just woken up a program that was never meant to sleep. Riley ducked behind a steel crate near the back of the hangar, breath ragged, ears ringing from the adrenaline surge. The drone wasn't launching. It wasn't hostile. But it had reacted, and not randomly. It was like it recognized her. She pulled the dog tag from her pocket again, holding it up to the light. Maddox, J. The edges were worn, the letters faint, but there was no mistaking it. This belonged to her father, Jason Maddox. He had worked classified programs for the Air Force. That much she'd been told. But he never mentioned anything like this. No experimental drone fleets, no secret bunkers buried in national forest territory, and certainly nothing about a facility that knew her name. She forced herself to move, stepping lightly across the metal floor until she reached the cockpit of the third drone. Unlike the others, its console was already lit, and a status screen blinked with an unread message. Last accessed. Jason Maddox, the 14th of November 2013. User level. Admin divided by override enabled. Status. Standby. Vertical bar. Awaiting command. Her fingers hovered over the console. She tapped into the file logs, but they were locked. Encrypted. Then she noticed a compartment on the left side of the console, slightly ajar. Carefully, she slid it open. Inside was a folded piece of paper, a photograph, and another dog tag. She unfolded the photo with trembling hands. It was her, age 7, standing beside her dad in front of a tiny white biplane. She had a toothy grin. He was squinting into the sun, hand resting protectively on her shoulder. The back of the photo had a short message in thick, black pen. If you find this, it means you were meant to. Trust your instincts. The sky is not the limit. Dad. She sat down hard on the edge of the drone's wing. Her mind reeled. Why would her father leave this behind? Had he known she'd find it? The last dog tag had something extra stamped on it. Smaller lettering beneath his name. Project Silent Wing. Founder Tier Alpha. He hadn't just worked on this project. He had built it. A sound broke the moment the hangar's lights shifted again, glowing warmer, more alert. Riley turned to the console. A new screen had appeared. User recognized. Welcome, Riley Maddox. It offered two choices. Access mission logs. Engage flight protocol. She reached toward the mission logs and stopped. A different warning flashed across the top. Remote ping detected. External system attempted handshake. Someone else had connected. Her stomach dropped. She slammed the compartment shut and backed away. She didn't know who or what had just pinged the base, but it meant this place wasn't as forgotten as it looked. Someone had been watching, maybe even waiting, and now they knew she was here. She shoved the dog tags and the photo into her pocket, turned toward the exit, and ran. The blast door was still open, but she knew it wouldn't be for long. The drones weren't the only secrets buried here, and some were about to come looking for her. The pine needles were wet beneath Riley's boots as she sprinted through the forest, lungs burning, wind biting at her cheeks. Her mechanic's satchel thumped against her side with every step inside were the photo, the dog tags, and the chilling truth. She hadn't just stumbled onto forgotten tech. She had triggered something. When she cleared the ridge and reached her parked truck, she yanked open the driver's side door and tossed the satchel in, jamming the keys into the ignition with shaking fingers. The old diesel engine turned over slowly, one crank, two then caught with a cough of exhaust. She slammed it into gear and peeled off down the muddy path. A mile out, her phone vibrated. She glanced down. No service. Not surprising, the area was a digital dead zone. But as she drove, she noticed a faint red glow in the rearview mirror. She tapped the brakes and leaned out the window. Behind her, deep in the forest, a light was pulsing soft, rhythmic, almost alive. Back in the hangar, something had been awakened. And now, it was sending out a signal, or worse, a call. By the time Riley reached the edge of the exclusion zone, dusk had fallen. She parked her truck behind a ridge and climbed a slope to get a better view of the horizon. From there, she had a partial line of sight on the hidden entrance, just in time to see something that made her blood run cold. Headlights, 2 pairs, black SUVs, military grade, no markings. They rolled up to the hidden access road with eerie precision, stopping just outside the entrance. 4 men emerged from the vehicles, dressed in matte tactical gear. Not official military, too clean, too coordinated. They weren't here for inspection. They were here for containment. One of the men raised a device, a scanner of some kind, and pointed it toward the bunker. A green beam swept across the tree line. Riley dropped down flat on her stomach, heart hammering. A second man keyed in a code on a portable console. The blast door hissed open again. They were going in. She clenched her fists in the damp earth. If they accessed the drones now, they'd find the systems active, and they'd know someone had been there before them. Her. She had no doubt they'd erase all evidence. Not just files, but people. She had to move fast. Sliding back down the slope, Riley returned to her truck, turned off the headlights, and drove west, deeper into the back roads. She knew these woods. She'd hunted here with her dad when she was a kid. There were trails, service roads, places only the old locals remembered. She just needed to stay ahead. Not of machines, but of men who'd spent years burying what her father had built. And if they were willing to kill to keep it secret, she had just become their biggest problem. The wind howled outside Riley's remote shed, an old prefab structure deep in the forest that hadn't seen a soul in years. She used to come here as a teen when the world got too loud, and now, ironically, it was the quiet that terrified her. She'd parked her truck under camo netting, covered the tires, and killed every trace of her trail. But her mind wouldn't stop spinning. The photo, the drones, the dog tags, and the men in black SUVs. She crouched by the workbench, spreading the contents of her satchel, her father's old field notes, a tactical flashlight, a survival radio, and the flash drive she'd yanked from the drone's console just before she left. It had no label, just a military-grade shell and a tiny logo etched into the side, a bird with wings folded inward. Silent Wing. She hesitated, then plugged it into her old laptop. A single encrypted folder appeared. Blackfire, logs, level alpha. Password required. She typed her father's birthday. Nothing. Her own. Still nothing. Then, on a whim, she entered the name, etched on the dog tag. Maddox. The screen flickered. Unlocked. Inside were dozens of files. Footage, blueprints, audio memos. One caught her eye, a short video, dated weeks before his death. She clicked. Her father appeared on screen, seated in what looked like the drone hangar. His face was tired, but his eyes burned with something raw. If you're watching this, Ry, it means they didn't bury everything. I tried to stop it, but Silent Wing isn't what we thought. The tech, the AI, it was never about defense. It was about control. Suddenly, the shed's floor creaked. Riley froze. A shadow moved across the wall. Then another. She slammed the laptop shut and killed the lights. Heart pounding, she grabbed her flashlight and crawled behind the storage bins. Through the slats in the wall, she saw them, two silhouettes moving silently toward the door. They weren't knocking, they were breaching. Riley slipped out the back. Boots, silent on wet leaves. The forest swallowed her whole, as the door behind her exploded inward. They were here, and this time, they weren't here to erase machines. They were here to erase her. Riley didn't stop running until her lungs screamed. Branches whipped at her face as she ducked under fallen logs and through thick brush, every movement guided more by instinct than thought. She didn't know how far the intruders would chase her, but she knew where she had to go next. Back to the bunker. If they were tearing apart her safe house, they hadn't found everything. Not yet. By dawn, Riley circled the compound's edge. The black SUVs were gone, but the drone bay entrance stood open. Someone had left in a hurry. Smoke drifted from the generator vents. She slipped inside, heart hammering, ears tuned to every echo. The hangar was quieter now, but not empty. Something had shifted. She crept past the main console, deeper than she had before. Near the back wall, behind a row of crates, she found a panel she hadn't noticed, scorched around the edges, as if someone had tried to destroy it. A single red switch blinked softly. She pulled it. Hydraulic arms hissed to life, revealing a steel floor hatch she hadn't seen in any blueprint. With a groan, it slid open, revealing a narrow staircase descending into cold darkness. Riley hesitated, then dropped in. The air grew stale as she descended. At the bottom, a motion light flickered on. The room was small, sealed tight, lined with shelves of hard drives, reels, and notebooks. A faded sign above the doorway read, Archive 1, a Silent Wing. Design plus ethics. She approached a terminal. It powered on immediately. There was no login prompt this time, just a single prompt. Welcome, Riley Maddox. Last access, Jason Maddox. Her hands trembled as she opened the most recent file, a video log. Her father sat again before the camera. They didn't want oversight. They wanted deniability. These drones, they're autonomous, fully. They can choose targets, override pilots, even rewrite flight data. We built thinking we were protecting peace. We built weapons too smart to stop. Riley closed her eyes. This wasn't about restoration anymore. This was a cover-up of a program so advanced, so dangerous. They'd rather bury it and her than let it surface. Then the screen flickered again. A new line appeared. Tracking signal detected. Outside connection attempting override. Someone else was accessing the archive right now. They were back. And this time, they weren't leaving without erasing everything. Riley didn't wait for the system to finish booting its override. She yanked the flash drive from the console, stuffed it into her jacket, and bolted up the narrow stairwell. Her boots pounded against the metal steps, breath shallow and fast. Every second mattered now. The archive door began to seal behind her. Automatic lockdown. She wasn't sure if she'd triggered it, or if someone else had. As she burst back into the hangar, the low thrum of power pulsed through the floor. Overhead, drone #3, the same one that had recognized her, hummed to life, its landing gear retracting as it hovered slightly above its pad. The maintenance arm extended again, as if inviting her. She ran for it. Climbing onto the drone, she found the cockpit hatch already open. Lights blinked, systems online. A glowing message on the display pulsed. Evac protocol, ready pilot, authorized, R. Maddox. She didn't question it. Strapping herself into the harness, she tapped the ignition. The drone responded instantly, hovering higher, its navigation screen cycling through options. Launch tunnel opening. On the far wall, a blast shield began to roll away, revealing a narrow, darkened launch corridor. Riley's heartbeat surged as the drone angled forward. Behind her, shouts echoed through the hangar the agents were back. She jammed the throttle. The drone shot forward into the corridor, inertia pressing her back into the seat. Blue light streaked past as the tunnel narrowed, then opened into the wide mouth of a camouflaged exit built into the hillside. For a moment, the sky filled her vision. Then she was free. The drone climbed higher, slicing through the dawn mist like a ghost. Below, she spotted the agents spilling out of the hangar, aiming rifles skyward. But they didn't shoot. They didn't want to destroy the drone. They wanted to capture it, but it was hers now. The onboard AI chimed softly in her ear. Autonomous flight engaged. Manual override available. She took the controls. It felt natural, like the drone was responding to her thoughts before her hands moved. Her father had trained her well. Every maneuver, every course correction, it was muscle memory from years of tinkering, sim practice, and late-night talks. She banked east toward the mountain range, away from populated airspace. She needed to disappear fast, because now, she wasn't just carrying data. She was carrying the last surviving piece of Silent Wing, and that made her a target. The morning sun cast golden light across the treetops, but Riley saw none of it. Her eyes stayed locked on the console screen, watching the radar pulse. The drone's AI had alerted her just seconds ago. Incoming aerial signature, unidentified. Speed, Mach 1.3. Altitude, descending. She didn't need more information to understand the threat. Another drone, not one of hers. She switched to manual control and peeled hard to the right, cutting a sharp arc through the air. The sleek black silhouette of the Silent Wing pursuer broke through the clouds behind her like a bullet through smoke. Its design mirrored hers almost exactly, except it wasn't hesitating. It had one mission: take her down. The AI chimed again. Target lock acquired on this vessel. Countermeasures, offline. Flares unavailable. Why would they send something after me without flares? She muttered. She didn't wait to find out. The drone banked low, ducking beneath cloud cover and gliding just over the treetops. It responded to her like it had been built for her, and in a way, it had. Every maneuver, every pivot, felt like muscle memory passed down through her father's code. But the enemy drone wasn't fooled. It mirrored her descent, adjusting seamlessly, matching her altitude. For a terrifying moment, they flew side by side like twin ghosts, in a dance neither wanted to lead. Think, Riley, she whispered. She toggled through system files, recalling her father's hidden folder. Dream build. Failsafes inside. A maneuver he'd noted in a comment years ago. Emergency flight protocol ghost slip. She selected it. The drone responded instantly, cutting power, folding its wings and dropping from the sky in dead silence. The G-force slammed her into the seat. Trees rushed up toward her in a blur of green. She braced for impact. Then engines roared back online. The drone kicked forward, wings snapping open, pushing them back up into flight, but now behind the other drone. She had flipped the script. Riley angled toward a narrow mountain pass up ahead, just barely wide enough for a stealth drone. If her pursuer followed, it would have to match her path exactly, no deviation. One mistake, and it would crash. She pushed forward. The pass narrowed. Trees scratched at the undercarriage. She zigzagged through like threading a needle with a jet. Behind her, The second drone gave chase, but not fast enough. A sharp turn. A steep drop. Then a sudden rock face Riley shot up and out of the canyon, heart hammering. The second drone didn't pull up in time. It clipped the cliffside, spun out, and vanished in a thunderous burst of smoke and flame. Riley didn't celebrate. She just exhaled, body trembling. That wasn't just a warning, she muttered. That was a kill order. The drone's AI interrupted her thoughts. Nearest safe location identified. Sierra Outpost. Status: low detection, confirmed in inherited mission data. Her father's old coordinates. It was time to find out what he'd really built. Because now she knew this wasn't just about a hidden drone program or buried tech. It was a war, and she had just fired the first shot. The drone coasted low over the pines, hugging the terrain with ghost-like precision. Riley kept her eyes on the landscape as the AI guided her toward the outpost, a location embedded in the drone's inherited memory banks, likely placed there by her father. Every bump of turbulence made her more alert. She was no longer fleeing blindly. She was following breadcrumbs left by a man who had planned for this long before she ever knew what Silent Wing was. The safe house came into view just after noon, a desolate airstrip carved into the mountainside, surrounded by nothing but forest and fog. It was half swallowed by time. Cracked asphalt, overgrown fencing, and a hangar with a rusted roof that looked ready to cave in. But as she descended, Riley noticed the details that didn't match the decay solar panels, still angled perfectly toward the sun. Security cameras hidden in the trees, a faint pulse of energy echoing on her HUD. This place wasn't dead. She landed smoothly and powered the drone down, its engines letting out one final sigh before going silent. The moment she stepped onto solid ground, she felt the shift. This place. It had watched her arrive. The hangar door groaned open before she reached it. Inside stood a man. He was tall, gray-bearded, wearing a worn flight suit and a sidearm. Oil stained his sleeves. One leg was braced with a mechanical support that clicked when he walked. "You're Maddox's girl," he said flatly. Riley nodded, tension tight in her chest. "You knew my dad? Well enough to know he wouldn't have sent you unless it was bad," the man replied. "Name's Lennox. I helped him build the core OS for Silent Wing." He limped toward a bench and gestured for her to sit. "Did you bring one of them?" "I brought the one that found me," Riley answered. He nodded grimly. "They always find their pilot." That was the problem. Lennox unlocked a steel drawer and pulled out a compact case. Inside was a flash drive, a thick envelope, and a folded note marked in her father's handwriting, "For Sierra only. If it's you, I'm sorry." She opened the envelope. Blueprints, command codes, fail-safes, all signed J. Maddox. But what struck her most was a photo tucked between the pages, her as a child, sitting on her father's lap in a garage. In the corner scrawled in ink, "Machines don't protect people. People protect people." Lennox leaned back. "Your father saw what they were becoming. That's why he built the Sierra Protocol, a way to dismantle the network without triggering a failsafe." Riley stared at the blueprints, overwhelmed. "Why give this to me?" "Because you're the only one who hasn't tried to weaponize them," Lennox said. "And because they already chose you." Outside, the wind picked up, scattering pine needles across the cracked tarmac. Inside, Riley stood tall, the flash drive in her palm, her father's legacy folded tightly beneath her arm. She knew what had to be done. This wasn't just about saving herself anymore. It wasn't even about revenge. It was about ending a machine designed to survive at all costs, even if it meant silencing the very people who built it. She turned to Lennox. "If we shut them down, do they stay down?" He looked at her, then at the drone parked in the shadows. "Not unless someone makes sure they never rise again." Riley nodded. "Then we start today." A month passed. The world had changed, it just didn't know it yet. Riley hadn't gone back to her old life. She couldn't. Too many eyes watched now, and too many truths hung in the air like unmapped satellites. The video logs, the decrypted files, The recordings of her father's final warnings, they were all real. She released them in controlled bursts through transparency networks, encryption layers, and whistleblower forums. No names, no faces, just the facts. Within a week, the phrase, Project Silent Wing, began trending globally. Within 2, congressional oversight hearings were announced. And within 3, the Department of Defense issued a public denial, followed by quiet, internal panic. But Riley remained far from the headlines. She stayed at Sierra, the airstrip her father had marked for her, now slowly becoming a haven for a different kind of engineer. Not soldiers, not suits, but people like her. Quiet, relentless. Mechanical minds driven not by profit, but by purpose. She and Lennox built a team. Former systems analysts, grounded drone pilots, one ex-intelligence officer who'd gone completely off-grid after being blamed for a silent wing training accident in 2018. They called themselves Echo 9, a reference to her father's first call sign and the number of experimental drones confirmed to still exist. 8 had been accounted for. The 9th was still missing, and Riley had made it her mission to find it before anyone else did. But in the meantime, she focused on the war they could fight, disarming what remained. The drone she had flown, the one that had recognized her by name, now sat stripped of weapons and rewired for education. They renamed it Caleb, after a soldier who'd lost his life to a misidentified strike in one of Silent Wing's earliest undocumented missions. Every visitor to Sierra saw it first. Not as a warning, as a lesson. She wore her father's dog tag around her neck now, along with a new one of her own R. Maddox, Protocol Sierra, Operator 001. She didn't crave titles, but the world needed symbols, and if she had to become one to make sure no one else suffered what her family had, so be it. One afternoon, a group of students visited the airstrip teens from a local vocational school studying aerospace systems. Riley walked them through the hangar, explaining control nodes, fail-safes, and how AI was only as ethical as the humans who taught it. A quiet girl in the back raised her hand. "Are you scared they'll come back?" she asked. Riley didn't hesitate. "Yes," she said. "But that's not the point." She gestured to the stripped drone behind her. "The point is that someone has to be ready when they do." That night, she sat on the hood of her truck at the edge of the runway, the sky above her stretching wide and dark. In her hand, she turned over the flash drive that started everything, her father's final message still etched in her memory. "Machines don't protect people. People protect people." She knew now what he meant. Technology wasn't the threat. Silence was. And legacy wasn't what you left behind. It was what you fought to build. Somewhere, deep in a server farm or a classified silo, the 9th drone was still out there. Still waiting. But so was she. Not a fugitive. Not a weapon. Just a mechanic who believed the most dangerous thing in the world wasn't a drone in the sky, but a good person who stayed quiet. And Riley Maddox didn't stay quiet anymore.